So when it comes to making a really good video, you always want to make sure that you have good, clean, and crisp audio. And so in today's video, I'm going to be comparing two microphones. I have this cheap little $13 lavalier microphone that I found on Amazon, and they are everywhere, versus the Audio-Technica AT875R. So the reason I'm making this comparison video is because sometimes we want to know, can we get away with some cheap microphone, $12, doesn't even have a brand name, it's just called lavalier microphone? Or do we need something that's a little bit more higher end? And for me, I would say it basically comes down to what you're doing and what you're working on. But the short answer is, I think that you can get away with a cheap microphone like this one that I found on Amazon. So I'm not going to get super deep into technical specs. Basically, I'm going to play you a video clip where you can see a comparison between the Audio-Technica and this cheap lavalier microphone, where I use both sources of audio. So just to let you know before we get into it, with this particular microphone, I'm using a receiver, which is the Movo WMX1. It's a pretty cheap, wireless transmitter that you can hook up one of these mics to, okay? And then I have that running into my Canon, and that's actually going through an adapter, which is a Rode 3.5 to XLR adapter. So this way it can be, the audio can run right into the camera. So without further ado, let's take a look at this video clip that I filmed where I use both of these microphones. I'll switch back and forth. I'll play some without processing and some with post-processing. Also, don't be too harsh on me because I'm not an audio guy. I just want it to sound good, so then that way your videos or your production has a little bit higher quality. So let's take a look at it.
So actually, the first time I did Heroine, I did unknowingly. So I couldn't have been scared. I couldn't have been. Would I have been? You can sit here and act tough all you want, but sure, I probably would have been. Yeah, you're messing with a harder drug. You're messing with an unknown. Anytime a human's messing with an unknown, they, usually pretty scared. The first time I did Heroine, I snorted it, but I was told it was Oxycontin. And oddly enough, the kids that I were dealing with it literally just told me that not out of, malice, but they didn't want us to know they were doing heroin. They were trying to hide it themselves. They're good friends with us. And, unknowingly I did it, and he kind of looked at me like, oh shit, like cat's out of the bag now, you weren't supposed to do that. So he told me, he said, listen man, that was heroin. I was like, okay, I knew that tasted a little different. I knew that was a little different, okay. And I loved it. It was like, the best analogy I have is you wake up one day and it's one of those days where nothing's going right. You're tired. You don't want to be out and about. You just want to go home. You're not feeling that well. You come home in your cold, dark bedroom, and your head, that moment your head hits your pillow. That's heroin. And that feeling of just, I don't have to carry this. I don't have to, taking off a backpack. That kind of feeling was what I got from that. And inside a little voice, there was two of them. One was, you should run the absolute opposite way from this, and you know it. The other one was, remember that void? This can most definitely fill that void for a little bit. And I did not listen to the reasonable voice at all. And I knew inside my head that there was no turning back at that point, that from that point on, it was going to get bad. Consciously knew it was going to get bad after that, because I knew that there was no way I was going to give that up. There was just no way in hell I was going to give that up for anybody. And I proved myself right. But that was the first time I kind of came in contact with heroin, for sure. And I was probably, say, 20 at the time, maybe 21, somewhere around there. Was the first time I really touched it and started getting into it. There was a period where After I did try for the first time, I tried to go back to the pills and just, smoke weed and do the whole thing. Didn't work. I was always like, no, there's that other thing. And I ran as Usain bolted all the way over to it, man, as fast as humanly possible and pretty quickly too. So yeah, that was the first time I came in contact with heroin.
Okay, so now that you guys got a chance to check that clip out, you can make your own decisions. Now, if you're asking which one should you get, right? I think you should just have both. I think you should have a shotgun mic and I think you should have a lav mic. They don't have to be these particular microphones, but you should have both of them because they provide some flexibility. Now, in my opinion, can you get away with doing, let's say, professional grade work with this little $13 lav microphone? Yeah, I think that you can, right? As long as you have somewhere good that you're recording, as long as you can have some good post-processing, thrown on there, I think you can absolutely get away with it. Now, and I have my own personal preferences on which microphone I like better. And if you want to find out, then I'll leave a link in the description below where you can go check out that whole clip, okay? Or you can watch the whole interview. But the reality is that the microphone that you choose to use is really going to depend on what it is that you're shooting, right? So are you shooting, an interview where you have a controlled environment where you're able to set up? Are you doing something that's a little bit more run and gun where you have to kind of just throw the microphone on somebody? You don't really have time to set everything up. Okay, it's all going to depend, right? Each one has its pros and its cons. But I think that for the price of this microphone for like 12 bucks, or you can get 2 for 20, you should definitely have a couple of them around because if they break or something, gets lost, it's not going to be that big a deal and you'll be able to get pretty decent quality. Now, you're not going to have the best quality in the world, but that's really not the point sometimes. Sometimes you just need a good solution that's going to work. And keep in mind, regardless of what path you choose or what decision you end up making, you always want to make sure that you have good audio in your videos because people can forgive a bad picture, but they cannot forgive bad audio. And don't sleep on these little cheap solutions because sometimes they work really well and better than you think. Hopefully that video was useful and helpful. And if so, give me a like, give me a comment, and let me know what kind of microphones are you using right now. So until the next time, keep on doing what you're doing and keep on shooting. Peace.